Hey YouTube, welcome back. We're going to yap for just a minute talking about the league start, season start build that I'm going to play for season 2 of Last Epoch, launching on April 17th. This is a build that stood out to me in the patch notes because of the buff to Smite Fissures. It's pretty funny. You know that I talked to Dread a lot as well. I was pretty sure that Dread was going to league start playing some kind of Heartseeker damage over time thing as a marksman. Turns out that he's going Smite Fissures as well. So we don't need to go into too much detail. There's good information out there on the internet already. But let me talk to you about what's going on here with our Void Knight Smite Fissure spell damage over time thing. So a lot of the VK builds that you're going to see right now for patch 2, season 2, will be Time Rot builds. This is specifically not a Time Rot build. You could take this build and try to sneak a little bit of Time Rot damage into it, but I suspect that they were going to have enough sources of damage in order to scale simply spell damage over time. So you'll note that we are not using a shield. We are not using the set affixes for the Forgotten Knight set in order to scale like more void damage with Time Rots or Void Vegetation with Time Rot. We're not doing Time Rot stuff. We're just stacking as much vitality as we can and then turning that into flat damage on our spells and scaling damage over time from Smite Fissures. So let's talk about the build. The things that changed for Smite that enabled this build, we can pull up the patch notes real quick. You see that Aftershock's functionality has been reworked. Aftershock is, of course, the node on the bottom of the Smite skill tree that you've never taken before that says it puts a spell damage over time on the ground. This says it now grants +1 maximum fissures per second. And then, let's see, fissure. This one here. Fissure's description has been clarified to state that it lasts 3 seconds. Incorrectly stated 5 seconds. And it's got 200 effectiveness of added damage effectiveness per second. It's stated 36. Unclear whether it was bugged or whether it's not bugged. I don't really know about this, but it was like physical damage in the past. So it's got real damage effects. Exciting, because it used to be garbage. And then it consumes some mana, so that's good to know. So we can spec into the Smite skill tree. And in fact, when I get access to Smite, the very first thing that I do will be take the Fissure node, and I'll assume that that's a good place to be for leveling a new character on a league start scenario. So I'll take this, and then I'll take the nodes in the beginning of the Sentinel skill tree, and I'll probably end up using like a wand to have minus mana cost as well. So we'll hope that that is enough of a way to like build your level 10, level 20 character for Smite. So for Smite, we have this extra node down here, which gives us some extra area. We have 100% more damage, and then we have extra fissures per second. I'll get into this in just a moment. But Smite for Void Knight, we're going to convert it into void damage over time, and then the rest of our skills are going to just like basically be more multipliers. Volatile Reversal, we're not doing anything cute with Devouring Orb, so we're basically just using it as a traversal skill. It is not important to have this skill for our particular build. More details later. For Devouring Orb, we're using it as a more multiplier to our damage and some extra Void Essences, which will give us some extra defense. We are not using this for Time Rot. We're not using this for the All-Consuming node. It's a different build. It's a cool build. Probably a good build, but it's not what we're doing here. We're not playing Time Rot stuff, so we're not taking Eternal Decay. And I have 4 extra points that I could put anywhere on the skill tree. So I've opted to put those 4 points into Extinction because I have some void damage. I have some vitality. I have more multipliers. Why not just have this like tiny extra bit of damage? Those last 4 points for Devouring Orb could go anywhere. I understand that this is hit damage, but it's no big deal. I don't really have anything else to spend them on. Abyssal Echoes is it's being used in order to make enemies take % increased damage, to justify or try to make up some of the lack of % increased damage taken that Volatile Reversal used to have. So Abyssal Echoes has this node here, damage over time taken. It's kind of funny, like we're playing a void damage over time build, and normally Abyssal Echoes would be a really good source of single target damage for a build like that. I think that Smite Fissures are going to have enough single target damage with like us building cast speed, with us stacking up a bunch of fissures under an enemy, like this ground overlapping AoE thing. I think it'll be okay not to have Abyssal Echo spec for damage. This right here is not how you spec for Abyssal Echo's damage, because this node right here says that it doesn't get consumed when you hit the enemy. In order to have Abyssal Echo's spec for damage using the Impair the Weak node, you'd have to hit like 20 times a second or something. You'd have to hit very, very quickly in order to make up for how easy it is to otherwise make use of the nodes in the top right here. So this is not a DPS skill. We're using it in this build for us just for quality of life or for utility. So we have Crumbling. Enemies take % increased damage over time. You Path of Exile players know you tourists know, and hopefully the last Epoch gamers also know that this is a more damage multiplier if you don't already have a source of enemies take percent increased damage. We have 20% increased damage over here, and then some extra fluff on the right side, so that doesn't matter. And then anomaly, I think you'll see a lot of people using this mark of rot node in the bottom middle of the anomaly skill tree. It just says enemies take percent increased void damage. So this is additive with Abyssal Echoes, the 24% increased damage taken. And then both of those together are multiplicative to your overall damage. If you've got extra nodes, you can go to the increased health leech over here. But I think just this thing with a whole bunch of points and a cooldown recovery speed, I suspect it'll feel good. So this is what I'm doing here. Let's take a look at what the damage looks like, just real quick. So by default, I've got this nice little graph to explain to you what's going on. So this is your time across the bottom here. This is 0 seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. So by default, Fissure Smite can only apply 1 fissure per second. So by default, you're getting 3 at a time at the 3 second mark, right? So 1, 2, 3. I guess the 0 second, 1 second, 2 second, right? So you can have 3 of these overlapping. In the Smite skill tree, it says that we can have 3 applied per second instead of just 1 applied per second. So we're going to multiply, and we're going to have 9 fissures at a time down here. The old damage effectiveness was 0.36, so 36%. The new damage effectiveness, or bugged or bug fixed, I don't really know what it is, according to the patch notes for Season 2, gives us 200% effectiveness of added damage. So it looks like times 9, we have 1800 effectiveness of added damage. So we're going to, what's the word? Add damage in order to make use of that. The rest of this is kind of exciting because Void Knight has a bunch of new stuff in their mastery. So we have lots of little ways to multiply our damage with more multipliers. So Smite has a bunch of more multipliers built into it. Additionally, for our fissure itself, so it's 0.25, then plus another 1 from this node here, the more damage multiplier. Devouring Orb has some extra more multipliers in it. So if you have Vitality, it doubles to 20% more instead of just 10% more. So that's why we're using Devouring Orb. It's also going to help us generate some Void Essences down here. When we have Void Essences, these have been reworked to be more Void damage. So we'll be using these to juice up our damage just a little bit more. Abyssal Echoes we talked about. This is a more multiplier. Enemies take percent increased damage, which is additive with this thing, but multiplicative overall. That's what I just mentioned here. So this is Abyssal Echoes. Singular Purpose is a new node in our mastery that multiplies our damage by 20%, which is pretty good. That is, if our block chance is less than 30%, yeah, less than 30% block chance. It's funny, I've actually seen some people using the time rot stuff and then also making use of that. And they've been using base types that are like kind of bad, which is hilarious to me. Like using a Mountain Shield, for example. It's got less than 30% block chance because you don't want block chance if you're playing a Void Knight, because you get more damage if you don't have block chance. Adorable. I love it. And then, of course, Mortal Cleave is a new node at the very top of the Void Knight skill tree, which situationally, it's kind of like a kill threshold, gives us more damage. Basically, for clearing, we're going to kill some monsters, we'll get Mortal Cleave, we'll kill some more monsters, so we can kind of snowball through a map like that, or an echo like that. And then at the very end of this is, of course, Vitality. And Vitality, I think, is important because it's like one of the big differences, other than like the mastery being new and interesting, for why we're playing this as a Void Knight instead of playing this as a Paladin. So I mentioned Dread at the very beginning of this because Dread's my buddy. He's the co-host of the podcast for the Rat City Radio, and we talk to him a lot. So he's playing a very similar to build to this, and he's playing it as a Paladin. So the Paladin version of this build, I'm not going to use Symbols of Hope. I don't think I need it. I don't think I need to spend points in it because there's so many good things that I want in Void Knight Mastery. But he is using Symbols of Hope, which is like a new, reworked, balanced version of Flame Ward. And I'm excited to see how lots and lots of people like playing with the new Symbols of Hope. Because I wasn't a big fan of the other one. I used it. But the new Symbols of Hope, like activating it and then getting damage reduction for a short period of time, I'm really excited to see how people like this. But I'm not going to be using this. Of course, Dread's build converts his fissure fire damage into lightning damage, and then he goes all in on like shock chance to lower enemies' lightning resistance, lightning shred, shock scaling. He's got like a tiny bit of electrify, but it's not the point. And then, of course, this node, which is more lightning damage over time per 2% crit multi. So he is building around this and making use of it. So for us, the biggest difference is that we are building vitality to get all of our flat damage. We are not worrying about building mana because we're not using a devotion amulet. All of our flat is simply coming from vitality stacking. We're going to have some cute stuff going on. I don't know how impactful it's going to be that we have random void beams striking down from the sky, but it's going to be pretty and it's going to be a tiny bit of extra damage. So as long as we're taking this thing, our vitality scaling will work with our smite. So that's an important note for us. So you've already seen my paint document here. We talked about some of the differences between like the mana scaling of devotion for a paladin for lightning damage, as opposed to the void scaling and everything that you get from the VK mastery. Love the VK thing. Let's see. Void Beam mentioned. Void Beam. Oh, somebody in Twitch chat watching live is talking about Rot Grip. I mentioned at the very beginning of this video that we're not doing any time rot stuff. When I first started investigating this build, I was wondering like, should I split the difference? Do I need to be a time rot build? Should I go all in on time rot? And like the fissures look like they have enough damage all by themselves. So I think I can totally skip time rot and just like not be a time rot build. I think you're going to see a lot of time rot people out there because this node is interesting, because there's hype around this node. And like my hope and my desire for people who are playing in season 2 or brewing your own builds right now, I hope that there's more than just one time rot build. If the only time rot build is like Devouring Orb and no one else takes the Rot Grip node, I'll be disappointed. That's very boring. Hopefully there's more than just one Rot Grip time rot scaling build out there. We'll see how that actually plays out over the next 3 or 4 months. You know what I mean? Real quick, I want to talk about Void Knight because Void Knight's my favorite mastery. It has been for a long time. And all of a sudden, not only is it cool and purple, but it's fucking good. We've got a lot of small changes going on in Void Knight. So we're going to yap about this and then finish off the video after that. So even like the very beginning thing, like we have relevant defenses for Void Knight. In the past, Void Knight's been like one of the squishiest things you can do. High damage, kind of squishy. Please don't ever dual wield with it because it was so squishy in the past. But now we have like actual factual good defenses in the VK skill tree. So we have less void and physical damage taken. Physical is relevant because you can convert things to be physical. Like you could even use affixes for like, you know, necrotic taken as physical, poison taken as physical, things like that. Then you have less physical damage taken all the way at the very beginning. At the top of your tree, you have elemental taken as void and then less void damage taken. I don't think you want to pair this with something like Orion's Eye. That doesn't strike me as what you want to be doing with your amulet slot. But what you could do instead is using something like a Ravenous Void. So Ravenous Void also has, you know, damage taken as void and then less void damage taken. So that's a pretty cool way of building your defense. And I'm a big fan of having stuff like this in the Void Knight. It seems like a cool thematic way of building defense. Not only that, but we have like more % increased health. We have more % increased health. We have more % increased health. And we even have a more multiplier to your armor. So for me, I want to end up using a Leonine helmet because it has like this really, really high value flat armor and like the reduced bonus damage thing from crits. But if you wanted more armor multipliers, you could use something like Snowblind. It's like more armor against blinded enemies, more armor against chilled enemies. And like, man, you could have 3 separate more multipliers for your armor. Like that's kind of sick. I don't think you'd want to use like a Throne of Ambition as well, but you could. You could have 4 separate more multipliers for your armor. I don't think that's necessary. But it's an option, and it's important to know what your options are. I talked about the helmet for the Leonine Great Helmet a second ago. This has up to 85% reduced damage taken from crits, and I want to use Blooded Exile because it has a lot of stats in case I can use a Red Ring of Atlaria someday and try to get that 180 threshold for attributes for my Red Ring build. But what's notable about this is then you only get 85% reduced bonus damage taken from crits. So of course, in the VK Mastery, we also have another 30% reduced bonus damage taken from crits built in for extra defense. So awesome there. Slow chances built in, frailty chances built in. We're going to have a tiny bit of time rot somewhere in the build. But then we have less damage taken from slowed enemies, less damage taken from time rotting enemies. And then this node, which is one of my justifications for using Devouring Orb. Devouring Orb is going to generate Void Essences for us. And this node says if you take a hit that deals at least 25 of your max health, consume a Void Essence to gain Void Aegis. And Void Aegis gives you 15% of your max health as endurance threshold. Let me hover over something real quick. Does it say that it stacks? I don't think it stacks. I don't think, does it stack? I don't think it stacks. Does it? I don't know. I don't think it stacks. But if it stacks, obviously it does, and I knew that ahead of time, so don't at me. Of course it stacks. Does it stack? It might stack. My brain is telling me that it stacks, but I don't remember where I read that it stacks. I don't think it stacks. I have no idea if it stacks. How about that? Done. Yeah, so I think that's about it for the mastery. The mastery is new and exciting, and I love Void Knights. That's the plan. This item here, I guess, is the very last thing that we can talk about because someone in Twitch chat also asked about this thing. So Pearls of the Swine is a unique item that I helped design, and that's the only reason that I'm using it. Which is true. No, Pearls of the Swine has the word vitality on it, which I think is important because we're stacking as much vitality as possible. Getting this with 1 LP should be easy. Getting a bunch of, like, T7 damage over time, T7 void damage would be what I'm looking for here. But really, it has all attributes. It has a good base type. It has all resistances. It has vitality on it. And we want to stack as much vitality as possible because we definitely want to be over that 90 vitality threshold to make use of Devouring Orb doubling its more multiplier. So that's the justification for that. If it ends up not being there, if we end up using something boring like a... where are my boring items at? Omnis, Orion's Eye, Nihilus, that's a boring item. What else is boring? Where's the one that stops you from dying every 3 minutes? By 3 minutes, I mean 20 seconds. Yeah, maybe it's an Aurora's Time Glass. I don't know. It's a good item. It stops you from dying. It's pretty OP. So something along those lines with like double red ring for the end game. That's the build. Hope it's good. I think we yapped long enough. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the description. But we are currently, over the next 2 days, 48 hours, we're going to be digging through other people's build planners, finding out what they're excited to do, and try to, I guess, build builds because it's so much fun. I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'll see you on the 17th.